My name is Claire. I grew up in a quiet town where almost everyone knew everyone. Our family was small. There was my father, Robert, my mother, Helen, my older sister, Natalie, and me. Natalie was 3 years older than I was. When we were children, I thought she was the most beautiful girl in the world. She had long brown hair, bright eyes, and a confidence I never had. She could walk into a room full of strangers and start talking as if she had known everyone for years. I was different. I was quieter. I liked books. I liked sitting near windows. I liked listening more than speaking. My mother used to say that Natalie was the strong one, and she used to say that I was the easy one. "You never give me trouble, Claire," she would tell me. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Years later, I understood what she really meant. I was the daughter who did not ask for much. When Natalie wanted a new dress, my parents found a way to buy it. When Natalie wanted to take dance lessons, they drove her across town twice a week. When Natalie wanted to attend a school trip, they changed their plans so she could go. I never complained. Not because I did not want things. I simply learned early that being quiet made life easier. If there was one piece of cake left, Natalie usually got it. If there was an argument over the television, Natalie usually won. If my parents were tired, I would go to my room. I told myself it did not matter. I loved my sister. At least I thought I did. There were good times between us. When we were little, we shared a bedroom. On rainy nights, we would lie awake and whisper about our future. Natalie said she wanted a big house. I said I wanted a little house with a garden. She wanted 3 children. I said maybe 1. She laughed and told me I would change my mind. Those memories stayed with me for years. Even after things became difficult, I remembered those nights. I remembered the girl who once held my hand under the blanket because she was afraid of thunder. I never imagined that one day the same girl would look at me and say she wished I had never been born. That came much later. When we became teenagers, the differences between us grew. Natalie became more focused on appearances. She cared about clothes, popularity, and what other people thought. I cared about school and getting a part-time job. My father often praised Natalie. "She knows what she wants," he would say. I didn't know what I wanted. I just did not talk about it as much. After high school, I went to a small college 2 hours away. Natalie stayed home and started working at a local company. I called my parents every Sunday. First, they missed me. My mother cried when I left. My father helped me carry my boxes to my dorm room. For the first few months, I thought nothing had changed. Then Natalie began calling my mother more often. She had problems at work. She was unhappy. She said she felt lost. My mother became worried about her. Every Sunday, our conversations slowly became the same. "How is Natalie? Did Natalie find another job? Did Natalie eat today? Is Natalie still upset?" I would answer whatever I could. Then my mother would say, "You understand, don't you?" I always said yes. I thought being a good daughter meant understanding everything, even when nobody tried to understand me. After college, I found a job in a small accounting office. It was not glamorous. I shared an apartment with a friend. I worked long hours, but I was proud of myself. For the first time, I was building a life that belonged to me. I sent money home when my father needed a repair on his car. I helped my mother pay for a dental bill. I did not think of it as a sacrifice. They were my parents. I wanted to help them. But Natalie noticed. One evening during a family dinner, she looked at me and said, "You always have to be the responsible one, don't you?" I smiled. "I guess I am." She did not smile back. "You like making everyone think you're perfect." I looked at my mother. She lowered her eyes. My father continued eating. That was the first time I realized that silence could hurt more than words. I went home that night with a strange feeling in my chest. I kept thinking about what Natalie had said. I was not perfect. I knew that. I had made mistakes. I had cried in bathrooms. I had failed exams. I had been afraid to ask for promotions. I had spent nights wondering if I was good enough. But somehow, in my sister's eyes, simply living quietly had become a reason to dislike me. I did not know what to do about it, so I did what I had always done. I stayed quiet. Natalie's life became more complicated over the next few years. She married a man named Daniel. He was polite at first. My parents liked him. They thought he was successful. The wedding was beautiful. I helped my mother prepare food for 2 days. I helped Natalie choose flowers. I paid for part of her dress when she realized she was short on money. She never thanked me. But I did not expect her to. She was my sister. After the wedding, things seemed peaceful for a while. Then Natalie started having problems in her marriage. Daniel lost his job. They moved into a small apartment. Natalie became unhappy. My mother spent hours on the phone with her. Sometimes she would tell me, "Your sister needs us right now." I understood. But soon, right now became every day. If Natalie needed money, my parents helped. If she needed a place to stay, they opened their home. If she had an argument with Daniel, my mother listened for hours. I never complained. But one evening, Natalie came to my apartment unexpectedly. She stood at the door with tears in her eyes. "I need to talk to you." I let her inside. She sat on my couch. For almost an hour she talked about her marriage. I listened. At the end she looked at me and said, "You don't understand what it's like." I told her, "Maybe I don't. But I'm here." She shook her head. "You always say the right thing." "I am not trying to." "You don't have to try. Everything comes easily to you." I was confused. What comes easily to me? She looked around my apartment. This. I almost laughed. The apartment had 1 bedroom. The couch was old. My kitchen table had 1 chair because I usually ate while sitting on the couch. I had spent years saving money. Nothing about my life felt easy. But I did not say that. I simply told her, "If you need help, I will help." She stood up. "I don't need your pity." Then she left. That night I cried. Not because she was angry, because I still loved her. I wanted my sister back. I wanted the girl who had once held my hand during thunderstorms. But she seemed to be disappearing. A few months later my father needed surgery. It was not life-threatening, but the recovery would take time. I took 2 weeks off work to help my parents. I drove my father to appointments. I cooked meals. I cleaned the house. I made sure my mother rested. Natalie visited once. She stayed for 20 minutes. Before leaving she said, "You always have to be the hero." I stared at her. "I am just helping Dad." She rolled her eyes. "That's what I mean." After she left, my mother said something that I will never forget. "Try not to take Natalie personally." I looked at her. What am I supposed to take personally? My mother sighed. "She feels like you are replacing her." I was stunned. I am not replacing anyone. I know. Then why does she feel that way? My mother had no answer. That was when I began to understand that this was not really about anything I had done. It was about how Natalie felt when she looked at me. And there was nothing I could do to control that. Still I tried. I invited her to lunch. She declined. I sent birthday gifts. She returned one. I called her on Christmas. She did not answer. Every time I told myself to keep trying. She was my sister. Families had difficult seasons. I believed difficult seasons eventually ended. I was wrong. The real breaking point came 2 years later. My parents decided to renovate their house. They were getting older, and they wanted to make the home easier for themselves. They asked me to help them organize everything. I agreed. For 3 weekends I drove home. I packed boxes. I cleaned closets. I sorted old photographs. I found childhood drawings that I thought had been lost. One afternoon I found a picture of Natalie and me at the beach. We were about 10 and 13. Our arms were around each other. We were both smiling. I held the picture for a long time. I thought about putting it in a frame. Instead, I placed it carefully in a box. That evening, Natalie came over. She saw me packing. "What are you doing?" "Helping Mom and Dad." She looked around. "This is my room." I stopped. "I know. Why are my things in boxes?" "Mom said we were reorganizing the room." Natalie looked at my mother. "Why didn't you tell me?" My mother said, "We were going to." Natalie turned back to me. "You always do this." I was confused. "Do what?" "Take over." "I am not taking over anything. You come here and suddenly everything becomes about you." I felt my face become warm. "I am only helping." She laughed. "You always say that." My father walked into the room. "What is happening?" Natalie pointed at me. "Tell her to leave." My father looked surprised. "Leave? She should stop coming here. I looked at my mother. She was crying quietly. I thought she would defend me. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe everyone needs some space." I felt my heart sink. I looked at my father. He did not say anything. I asked, "You want me to leave?" My father rubbed his forehead. "Claire, this is becoming too much." I nodded slowly. "Okay." Natalie folded her arms. "Good." I walked upstairs. Packed my things. Not much. Few clothes. My laptop. Some books. The photograph from the beach. I carried my suitcase downstairs. My mother followed me. She looked frightened. "Claire." I waited. She touched my arm. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." I stared at her. "I am not making anything hard." She began crying. "I love you." "Then why are you letting me leave?" She had no answer. My father stood behind her. I looked at both of them. "Am I still your daughter?" My father looked down. "Of course you are." "Then why can't I come home?" Nobody spoke. And that silence gave me the answer. I walked to the door. My mother said the words that stayed in my mind for years. "Don't come back. Your sister needs peace." I opened the door. The cold air hit my face. I looked back one final time. I wanted my mother to stop me. She did not. I wanted my father to tell me to stay. He did not. So I walked away. That night I slept in my apartment with the lights on. I could not sleep. Every sound made me think someone was knocking. At 3 in the morning I checked my phone. No missed calls. No messages. Nothing. I put the phone down. Then I cried. Quietly. Because I was afraid that if I cried loudly, I would admit how deeply I had been hurt. The next morning I went to work. That was the strangest part. The world had not stopped. People still needed coffee. Cars still moved through traffic. My coworkers still complained about meetings. Someone laughed near the printer. And I sat at my desk pretending my heart was not broken. For the first few weeks I did not tell anyone what had happened. When people asked about my family I smiled. "They're fine." That became my answer. They were not fine. I was not fine. But I did not know how to explain that your parents can love you and still make you feel unwanted. One person noticed. Her name was Anna. She worked in the office next to mine. One evening, she found me sitting alone in the parking lot. "You okay?" I nodded. She looked at me. "No, you're not." I smiled weakly. She sat beside me. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You cannot make someone choose you." I looked at her. What am I supposed to do? Choose yourself. Those 3 words stayed with me. For years I had thought choosing myself was selfish. That night I realized it was not. So I started small. I stopped calling my parents every Sunday. I stopped sending messages that were never answered. I stopped asking Natalie how she was doing. It hurt. But slowly the pain became quieter. I worked harder. I received a promotion. I moved into a better apartment. I bought a small dining table. I planted flowers on my balcony. I started taking long walks in the evening. And then one rainy Thursday I met Daniel. Not my sister's Daniel. A different Daniel. His name was Daniel Carter. He worked in the same building as a friend of mine. We met in the lobby when I dropped a folder. He helped me pick up the papers. "You have a lot of numbers here," he said. I smiled. "I work with numbers." "That explains why you look worried." I laughed. "I always look worried." "No," he said. "You look like someone who thinks too much." I did not know what to say. So I thanked him. That was the beginning. We did not fall in love quickly. It grew slowly. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became walks. Walks became long conversations. Daniel never asked me to explain why I was quiet. He never pushed. He simply stayed. One evening I told him about my family. I expected him to say something simple. Instead, he listened carefully. When I finished, he said, "You still love them?" "Yes." "Even after everything?" I nodded. "They are my parents." He looked at me. "Loving them does not mean you have to keep hurting yourself." I cried that night. Not because I was sad. Because someone finally understood. Daniel and I eventually moved in together. We built a small, peaceful home. There were no perfect days. We argued sometimes. We misunderstood each other. But we always came back to the same table. We talked. We listened. We apologized. That was something I had never learned in my childhood home. A few months later, my mother called. I stared at her name on the screen. I almost did not answer. Then I did. Hello. There was silence. Then she said, "How are you?" "I'm okay." "How is work?" "Good." Another silence. Then she asked, "Are you happy?" I looked at Daniel sitting across the room. "Yes." My mother began to cry. I closed my eyes. "I miss you," she whispered. I wanted to say I missed her too, but I was afraid. So I said, "I miss you too." That was our first real conversation in almost a year. It did not fix everything, but it opened a small door. And sometimes a small door is enough. 3 years after I left my parents' house, Daniel proposed. He did it in our kitchen. There were no cameras, no fancy restaurant, no crowd, just 2 cups of coffee and a small ring. He took my hand. "Claire, I don't need a perfect life." I smiled. "I know. I just want a life with you." I started crying. "Yes." We hugged. That evening I called my mother. She answered immediately. "Claire, I have something to tell you." She became quiet. "What happened?" "I'm getting married." My mother cried. Then she laughed. Then she cried again. "I am so happy for you." "Thank you." There was another pause. Then she asked, "Can I come?" I knew exactly what she meant. Of course. She cried again. I invited my father. He accepted. I did not invite Natalie immediately. I did not know what to do. She had not spoken to me in years. Then 2 weeks before the wedding I received a message. It was from her. "Congratulations." That was all. I stared at the screen. Daniel saw my face. "Who is it?" "Natalie." He sat beside me. "What did she say?" I showed him. He looked at me. "Do you want her there?" I did not know. Part of me wanted to say no. Another part of me remembered 2 little girls under a blanket during a thunderstorm. I remembered the beach photograph. I remembered my sister before everything changed. So I replied, "Thank you. I hope you're well." She answered a few minutes later. "I am." Then she wrote, "Mom says you want me at the wedding." I stared at those words. I had not said that, but I knew what my mother had probably told her. I replied, "If you want to come, you are welcome." There was no answer for several hours. Then, "I'll come." I put my phone down. I did not feel happy. I felt nervous. I did not know what would happen. The wedding day arrived on a bright Saturday morning. I woke before sunrise. For several minutes I simply lay there. I thought about the house where I grew up. I thought about the locked door. I thought about my mother's words. "Don't come back." Then I looked at the dress hanging beside the window. I smiled. I had come back. Not to that house, but to myself. At the wedding venue my mother arrived early. When she saw me she covered her mouth. "Oh, Claire." She hugged me. I hugged her back. For a moment I was a little girl again. Then my father walked toward me. He looked older. His hair was almost completely gray. He held my hands. "You look beautiful." "Thank you, Dad." He looked down. "I am sorry." I knew what he meant. I nodded. "We can talk later." He squeezed my hands. "Okay." Then Natalie arrived. She stood near the entrance. For a moment neither of us moved. She looked different. Older. Tired. But still my sister. She walked toward me. I don't know what to say. I smiled gently. "You don't have to say anything." She looked at my dress. "You look beautiful." "Thank you." Then she began crying. I was wrong. I took a breath. "Natalie, I was angry at you for things that were never your fault." She wiped her eyes. "I thought you were taking everything from me. I never wanted anything from you. I know that now." We stood there quietly. Then she said something I had waited years to hear. "I was jealous of you." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because you were brave enough to leave." Her words surprised me. She continued, "I thought you had everything. I thought Mom and Dad loved you more because you were responsible. I thought you were judging me. I never judged you." "I know." She looked down. I hated you because I did not know how to deal with myself. I felt tears in my eyes. For years I had wanted an explanation. But now that I had one, it did not feel like victory. It felt sad. I touched her hand. I wish you had told me. So do I. Then she hugged me. I closed my eyes. I did not forget what happened. Forgiveness does not erase memory. But forgiveness can stop the memory from controlling the rest of your life. When I walked down the aisle, I saw my parents sitting together. My mother was crying. My father had his hand over hers. Natalie was sitting beside them. For a second, I remembered the night I had walked out of their house. I remembered the locked door. Then I looked at Daniel. He was waiting for me. He smiled. And I realized something. My life had not ended when my family rejected me. It had continued. It had grown. It had become something beautiful. Daniel took my hand. The ceremony was simple. There were flowers, soft music, family photographs, few close friends, nothing extravagant. But when I looked around, I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. After the ceremony, my father came to me. I should have stopped you that night. I looked at him. Yes. He nodded. I was afraid of making things worse. You made things worse by doing nothing. He looked down. I know. I put my hand on his shoulder. I was hurt for a long time. I know. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life being angry. He looked at me. Thank you. My mother came over. She held me. I should have protected you. I whispered. I needed you. She cried. I know. We stood together for a long time. Then Natalie joined us. For the first time in years, all four of us were standing together. But something was different. I no longer needed them to decide whether I belonged. I already knew I did. Not because they gave me permission. Because I had finally given myself permission to belong in my own life. Later that evening, during the reception, Natalie came to sit beside me. Do you remember the beach? I smiled. The old photograph? Yes. I still have it. She looked surprised. You kept it? Of course. She laughed through her tears. I thought you hated me. I was hurt. So was I. I know. She took my hand. Can we start again? I looked at her. Not as the sister who had pushed me away, but as the girl who had once been afraid of thunderstorms. Yes, I said. We can start again. Life did not suddenly become perfect after the wedding. That is not how life works. My parents did not become different people overnight. Natalie did not stop making mistakes. And I did not forget everything that happened. But we began talking. Slowly. Carefully. My mother came to our home for lunch. My father helped Daniel fix a broken shelf. Natalie brought flowers. The first few visits were uncomfortable. Sometimes silence filled the room. But eventually we learned how to talk again. One afternoon my mother and I were washing dishes. She said, I still think about that night. I knew exactly which night. I do too. I wish I could go back. So do I. She dried a plate. Would you change anything? I thought for a moment. No. She looked at me. Nothing. I wish things had been different. But if I had never left, I might never have learned who I was. My mother nodded. That is difficult for me to hear. I know. But I understand. I hugged her. There was no dramatic apology. No perfect ending. Just two women standing in a kitchen, trying to understand the years they had lost. A few months later, Natalie called me. She was having trouble in her marriage. For a moment, I felt the old fear return. I thought she might ask me for something. Money. A place to stay. Help. Instead, she asked me a different question. Can I come over? I smiled. Of course. She came that evening. We sat at the kitchen table. She cried. I listened. When she finished, I said, You don't have to become someone else to be loved. She looked at me. Where did you learn that? I smiled. Life. She laughed. For the first time, it felt like my sister was back. Not the old Natalie. Not the perfect sister from childhood. Just Natalie. Human. Imperfect. Trying. And maybe that was enough. A year after my wedding, my parents decided to sell their old house. I was surprised when they told me. My father said the house was too much work. My mother said she was ready for something smaller. We went there together one final time. The rooms were almost empty. I walked through the hallway. My childhood bedroom had been painted a different color. The kitchen looked smaller. The staircase seemed shorter. I stood in the doorway and remembered the night I left. For years I had imagined returning to that house. I thought I would feel powerful. I thought I would finally prove that they had been wrong. But standing there I felt something else. I felt tired. Not physically. Emotionally. I realized I no longer needed that house. I had spent so many years thinking my parents had taken my home away. But the truth was simpler. A home is not just a building. It is the place where you are allowed to be yourself. And I had built that place somewhere else. My father walked beside me. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yes." He looked around. "I am sorry this place holds painful memories. It also holds good ones." He smiled. "That is true." I found the old marks on the wall where my height had been measured as a child. There were 3 names. Natalie, mine, and my younger cousins. I touched my name. Then I smiled. "I remember this." My father laughed. "You were always shorter than Natalie." "I know." We both laughed. It was a small moment, but it meant a lot. Before leaving, my mother handed me a small box. "What is this?" "Your old things." I opened it. Inside was the beach photograph. The same one I had carried away years ago. But now there was something else. A letter. I looked at my mother. "What is this?" She said, "Read it later." That night I opened the letter. It was from my mother. She had written it years ago. The date was the same night I left. She wrote that she was sorry. She wrote that she had been afraid. She wrote that she had convinced herself keeping peace with Natalie was more important than standing up for me. She wrote that she regretted it. I cried. Not because I needed the apology, but because I finally understood something. My mother had known she was hurting me. She just had not known how to stop. And sometimes people can love you deeply and still fail you. That does not make the pain disappear, but it helps you understand it. People sometimes ask me whether I regret leaving. The answer is complicated. I regret that it happened. I regret the years I lost. I regret the birthdays when we did not speak. I regret the family dinners I missed. I regret that my mother did not hold me when I walked out. But I do not regret the woman I became afterward. Because leaving forced me to discover something I had forgotten. I mattered to. For years I thought being a good daughter meant accepting everything. I thought being a good sister meant staying quiet. I thought keeping peace meant swallowing my own pain. Now I know better. Peace is not always silence. Sometimes peace is telling the truth. Sometimes peace is walking away. Sometimes peace is forgiving someone without inviting the same hurt back into your life. And sometimes peace is simply waking up one morning and realizing that the people who rejected you no longer control how you see yourself. I eventually did come home. Just not in the way my parents expected. I came home to my family at my wedding. I came home to my sister when she finally apologized. I came home to my mother when she admitted she had been wrong. I came home to my father when he finally told me he should have protected me. But most importantly, I came home to myself. That was the real journey. The girl who walked out of that house believed she had been abandoned. The woman who returned years later understood that she had been given a chance to begin again. My wedding was not revenge. It was not proof that I had become successful. It was not a way to make my parents regret losing me. It was simply the day I realized that my life had moved forward. And I was grateful. Grateful for the people who stayed. Grateful for the people who taught me. Grateful even for the painful years, because they taught me that love should never require me to disappear. Today I still have the old beach photograph. It sits in a small frame on a shelf in my home. Natalie and I are still in it. 2 young girls standing beside the ocean. Neither of us knows what life will bring. Neither of us knows that one day we will hurt each other. Neither of us knows that one day we will find our way back. Sometimes I look at that picture and think about how simple everything seemed. Then I smile. Because life is not supposed to stay simple. People grow. People change. People make mistakes. Some people leave. Some people return. And sometimes the greatest gift is not getting back the life you lost. It is building a new life that you no longer want to lose. So if you have ever been told that you are not wanted somewhere, Remember this. Someone else's rejection does not decide your worth. A closed door does not mean your story is over. And being left behind does not mean you have nowhere to go. There may be a day when you look back and realize that the door you cried over was the very door that led you toward a better life. That happened to me. My parents once told me, "Don't come back. Your sister doesn't want you here." Years later, I walked into a wedding hall wearing a white dress. My parents were sitting in the front row. My sister was beside them, and the man I loved was waiting for me at the end of the aisle. I did not walk toward revenge. I walked toward love. And for the first time in my life, I understood something I wish I had known much earlier. Sometimes you don't find your way home by going back. Sometimes you find your way home by becoming the person you were always meant to be. And that is the home nobody can ever take away from you.